Welcome, everybody. I'm Kevin Theos, and I'm the USPTA Southern President, and I'm delighted to be the moderator today for a fantastic panel to discuss coming back from COVID-19. Since 1991, Tom Cascarano has been the Director of Tennis at Greensboro Country Club in North Carolina. He received the USTA North Carolina Tennis Professional of the Year in 2004 and developed USTA Junior Team Tennis in Greensboro and served as the league coordinator as well. He served as president of the Greensboro Tennis Professionals Association, as the past chair of the USPTA Southern Nominating Committee, and was inducted into the USPTA Southern Hall of Fame in 2015. Welcome, Tom.
Welcome. I appreciate that. Very nice, Kevin.
Thank you. Jeff Hawes is a USPTA Master Professional and the Director of Tennis in New Orleans Country Club in New Orleans, Louisiana. He served as president of the USPTA Missouri Valley Division and later as USPTA Southern Division President. He received the USPTA Pro of the Year recognition in both divisions. Jeff also served as Vice President of the USPTA National Board. Jeff was inducted into the USPTA Southern Division's Hall of Fame in 2018. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Sophie Woorons is the owner-director of Brookstone Meadows Tennis in Anderson, South Carolina. She's a former All-American player for Clemson in both singles and doubles and played on the WTA Professional Tour. She's won numerous national and international championships as an individual and team player and has also presented nationally and internationally. She served on the USPTA Southern Board and has been recognized as the Allen Henry Southern Pro of the Year in 2015. Welcome, Sophie.
Hello, everyone.
In 1995, Chuck Gill became the director of tennis at the club at Ibis in West Palm Beach, Florida. In 2007, he became the director of sports. He served as Florida Division President and later as USPTA National President from 2015 to 2017, during which time the USPTA relocated its office to Lake Nona and successfully completed the first cycle of a professional development requirement to help elevate the standards of certified teaching pros in the U.S. He's currently on the USTA National Board of Directors as a director at large. Welcome, Chuck.
Thanks, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Okay, well, let's jump right in. So, Jeff, I'll pose the first question to you, and then we'll start going in reverse order after the first one. So, what methods and how often are you officially communicating with your staff currently?
Well, I would say that, we have both part-time and full-time staff like most everyone else. Our part-time staff received a letter from the general manager back in the third week of March, letting them know they were going to be furloughed. And then the full-time staff actually stayed on for another week to week and a half before we eventually closed on April 1st. So we were around a little bit longer. The part-time staff, our general manager is communicating with via mail, and then I'm texting with them just to make sure that they're good to go once we decide to open the doors. With our full-time staff, they are working right now at the club, but we are maintaining our courts and, answering phone calls, and I'm communicating with them either in person or via text. So.
Okay, fantastic. And Chuck, how are you communicating with staff?
We're doing a lot of communication. We have a phone tree set up so my individual managers can be in touch with the court maintenance team, with the pros, with the desk and reception staff. So we kind of have a phone tree. Individually, they use a lot of Zoom. They've started using Zoom for meetings, and I use Zoom with my managers. We set up a weekly call. We've kept everyone employed, and we've still kept them employed. However, they're on call. So we do a call and a Zoom meeting once a week, as well as information that goes out in email to all staff from the general manager twice a week.
Okay. And Sophie, what about you? How are you communicating with staff?
Well, I'm really small, so my staff is we just communicate by text. We closed the pro shop, the building, on March 15th, and we closed the club on March 31st, and then we are slowly reopening right now, but we're not opening the building, so we don't have any interaction indoors. But main communication is basically text with the staff.
Okay. And then Tom.
Appreciate it. I'm in a situation that we actually, for the most part, have been open with obviously restrictions. So the staff, I've got a staff of 13. Half of the staff was furloughed. The other half is still working, including my teaching professionals, which were able to teach. So the staff that is now in place working on a daily basis, I'm actually communicating with them daily to be sure that they understand all the fluid situations that are going on and policies that we've put in place. And we've had to make some changes week in and week out to be sure that we're doing the right things here. For the individuals that are on furlough, I stay in contact with them weekly only, just to be sure they know where we're at in reference to our activities of the club and what we hopefully will be able to do here in the very near future, as our governor in North Carolina has designated May 8th as a factor of the possibility of loosening up some of the restrictions. So we're pretty excited about that if it does go through, to kind of bring most everybody back.
Okay. And while we're talking about communication, Tom, how are you communicating with your members?
We have a marketing department here. So with the golf and the tennis being the two facilities still open, the marketing department with our general manager has actually put forth a small newsletter that we send out weekly. So it's an informational newsletter that goes out. Within that newsletter, we also have departmental information. And we do actually weekly videos. Could be a tennis tip, could be information about what we're doing for that week. But we're doing weekly videos with that to keep them, one, connected, but two, gives them the opportunity to kind of feel like they're still part of the tennis program. So, but everything goes through marketing. We don't do anything in-house in our tennis pro shop in reference to any emails, but marketing handles all that through all the departments that are here at the club.
Okay. And then Sophie, how are you communicating with members?
Emails and text. So the thing that I did with the members to communicate with them with the emails is I actually asked them if there was any question they had about tennis that I would try to answer. And so I've had members ask me, well, I'm really struggling with my forehand. What do you think I'm doing wrong? And then I would answer. Or my wrist hurts. What do you think is the cause of that? Or how do I practice tennis at home? So I've had the opportunity to practice, to work with them a little bit remotely and keep contact that way. I've also sent some personal texts, checking on their kids, checking on their parents, and just really showing a lot of concern. This is a grave situation, so I want to make sure everybody's okay.
Okay, very good. And Jeff?
Our general manager is communicating, I would say, weekly to every other week with the membership, the club-wide email that goes out, just updating them on what we're going to be opening, whether, just the other day we went from walkers on the golf course to those that could ride in electric carts. We're going to actually be opening up for to-go orders tomorrow. So we're maybe a little bit behind the 8 ball as compared to others, but we were a hot spot here in New Orleans. In regards to myself, I communicated with our members pretty much through email and text. Like everybody else, they want to get on the tennis court, and we want to get on the tennis court also, but we are going by what our governor and mayor tells us to do. So.
Okay, that sounds smart. Chuck, what about you?
Yeah, we have two communications that go out to the entire membership. One is just a general club department membership that we all contribute to, and then we have one special email that goes out every week on just what's opening and what, the situation regarding the COVID crisis. And on a more granular note, the club has a Facebook page, so we're trying to be very robust at making sure we have tips and welcomes and greetings and different things from our staff on that. I think on a personal note, kind of what Sophie's saying, nothing beats a personal text or an email or a personal call to those members that, you know, we all have them, that some are more needy than others, but just try to communicate with everybody as directly as you can. And sometimes it can be as simple as, hey, how you doing? We hope we're ready for you, and we're trying to be safe and comply with all the rules and regs. Okay,
that sounds good. And actually, let's transition here, Chuck, to how you're going to handle opening. I mean, how would you handle a healthy employee who feels uncomfortable returning to work?
Well, I really like that you had me first on this, because these are really tough.
Yes, perfect.
Honestly, yeah, well, that's right. But first, the number one thing you need to do when people are returning and health is involved is, if you have an HR department, or if you have an HR person that's your go-to person at your club or facility, use them, because a lot of this is really uncharted waters for a lot of us. And there is no playbook for this. Nobody, unlike a hurricane or a situation that we may have gone through before, nobody's gone through this. So a healthy employee who feels uncomfortable returning to work, we have a number of options, because we've actually kept everyone employed. We're allowing them to take unpaid leave if they're uncomfortable working. We allow them to take some PTO if they have any accrued. But as far as a healthy employee who feels uncomfortable returning to work, all of our employees now are being paid, but their status is technically on call. So as you can imagine, we're treating somewhat on a case-by-case basis, but we're being very consistent in that if you're healthy and you're on call and you choose not to work, then your options are an unpaid leave in which your position is protected, or taking some PTO.
Okay, thank you. Sophie?
So I have given my staff the option. So one of them decided to go back and teach, and the other decided not to go back and teach. So I'm with Chuck in a sense that, you know, I want them to make their own decision for their health and the health of their family. So, you know, we are giving them some of the money that we've received from the government for the PPP, whatever it was called, for the next month or so. After that, I guess they're going to have to take some personal time off.
Okay. And then Tom, how would you handle an employee who doesn't feel comfortable coming into work?
We actually have had this situation, again, being one of the facilities that has been open. And Chuck hit the nail on the head. If you've got an HR individual that can help you with this, our HR person was instrumental in helping one of our individuals with this. And that individual actually went through the process with HR, and they decided for use some PTO and some vacation time on this. And we'll discuss her situation as we move forward down the road. But, you know, again, having another resource in a situation that all of us have never dealt with before, I think is imperative. And I think it's important, whether or not it's a GM or a HR person or somebody that we can help, that can help us communicate information and sit down with somebody that's uncomfortable. I think it's important. It's hard to make a decision on your own, and that person feeling uncomfortable, you got to make the right decision for them and for what's going on. So again, I know I've a little lengthy answer, but HR was very instrumental in helping me and will help me as we move forward and continue to open even more. Okay, very good. And Jeff?
I would agree with Chuck and Sophie and Tom in regards to using your human resources director. But just to add to it, and this may be assumed, but I don't think it's a bad idea to bring it up, just to let your employees, a lot of times we assume that all of our employees know exactly what's going on, and just to let them know exactly what the club is doing, to take precautions. Whether, you know, Tom and I had a conversation the other day where, you know, if you have your staff wearing masks so they're protected, if you have those clear shields that you have at the front desk, or whether you're using gloves or whatever. So I think it's good to inform your staff of the precautionary measures you're taking, so that maybe that would give them a little bit of confidence in coming back to work.
Okay, and then do you have a method, or have you thought about monitoring the health status of your employees from day to day, taking their temperature or something like that, Jeff? What are your thoughts on that?
Currently, we have not purchased any of the no contact thermometers. That may happen, but we haven't purchased them yet. And so we are just informing our employees of our policy in regards to, you know, if they have symptoms, they should stay at home. If they have a fever, of course, they should stay at home. If they've come in contact with somebody who's tested positive, you know, all these things, we let them know with the policy of the club they should not be there, nor should a member be at the club. But just to have some trust in them. I mean, you know, it's interesting. I was reading something this morning from a company that handles labor situations, and they just said that, you know, you really can't ask someone if they've taken the test or if they've tested positive, but you can ask questions in regards to symptoms and things like that. So it sounds to me like they're kind of saying that you can't, but you can. So that's interesting.
Well, so how would you handle an employee who has maybe tested positive? I mean, when would they be able to come back? How would that work?
Well,
Jeff,
I'm glad you asked that question, Kevin, because I actually was dealing with that same company answering these questions in regards to COVID. It really has to do with whether someone has taken or is planning to take a test, because if they haven't taken a test, they're out, that they really can't come back until they don't have a fever any longer, that their symptoms are improving, and it's been 7 days since their first symptoms. However, if they are planning to take a test, they would, of course, not. I mean, they wouldn't have a fever, their symptoms are improving, and they'd have to take 2 tests that would prove negative within 24 hours. So there's a couple of answers in regards to whether someone can come back to work. Although, you know, it's interesting. We've got 4 different people working at 4 different clubs here, and each club might have a slightly different policy.
Yeah. All right. Tom, I mean, how would you handle, you know, figuring out how the health status of your employees from day to day, and if somebody's ill, when they can come back?
It's almost that's almost like a twofold question, but my first answer to that part of the question is almost to the first question that you originally asked, is how much and how often do I communicate to my staff, and you know, what kind of communications are there? Every day that my staff comes in here, I communicate, I ask, I want to know how they're feeling that day. Tell me, you had a good day? Is everything going okay? How do you feel today? Are there any symptoms that I need to be aware of? So the day-to-day communication to my staff that are here is constant, to be sure that we don't have any issues. Oddly enough, we didn't have it in our department, the tennis side, but we did on the golf side. And this may not directly be involved, but our golf maintenance superintendent daughter thought she had the virus. And so he was quarantined immediately for 2 weeks at home. And then they quarantined the daughter as well in a different part of the house. It took them 14 days to get her response test back, and it happened to be fortunately negative. But it was an immediate response by the club to get him quarantined back at home and not come back until we heard, one, about the test results, and then they were going to move on from there to have appropriate procedures to bring him back to work very slowly. But again, after getting the response, after he was quarantined for 14 days, it took him 14 days to get the information back about the test, and it actually turned out to be negative. So, you know, again, if somebody would go through that, I am sure, again, the policies and procedures that are in place in reference to the 14-day quarantine, I know we would follow. And the same thing here, we would want to know how quickly the positive response came back, and we'd be very cautious and trying to bring that person back at an appropriate time.
Okay, yeah. Well, sounds like, yeah, you have a plan in place. Sophie.
So the problem with this thing is that people can communicate it without symptoms. So the idea is to have everything in place so that regardless of somebody's status, that you're not putting anybody at risk of communicating it or getting it. So the way I envision it is that, you know, would you be comfortable playing doubles with your doubles partner if you had pneumonia? How would you protect yourself from them? Or would you be comfortable if your partner had a strong diarrhea? You know, what is it, you know, how, you know, you don't high five, you don't stay anywhere close to them, you don't sit on the same bench, you don't touch the gate, you know, you don't share rackets. And so all the precautions that we put into place are supposed to protect us, you know, against it, even if there are no symptoms showing. So that's the way I look at it.
Okay. And Chuck?
Yeah, it's at times this is all clear as, but as a rule, Sophie's right in terms of some people are symptomatic and have it, and if you're symptomatic at our club, you go home, period. We don't want you there. We advise you, if you're concerned, to get a test done. Getting tests has been its own set of challenges for a lot of people. But once you do test positive, and we had that happen once, we have a contact tracing mechanism where we then go back and forth and see who you would have come in contact with over the last 7 days. Obviously, if you're working to go food and you're in contact with a lot of people, or if you're a golf course maintenance worker and you carpool with 8 other people, we need to trace that contact. And it's very possible that we tell everyone you came in contact with to go get tested as well. That's once you test positive. Fortunately, we haven't had a very low, really one person at our entire club, whether it's a staff member, well, it was a staff member, and no members have tested positive, so we haven't had to deal with it. But our protocols are, if you test positive, we do contact tracing to see who you could have come in contact with, and we advise everybody to stay home and be on the side of caution. Don't return until your symptoms no longer exist.
Kevin, if you don't mind me jumping in here, I just want to ask Chuck, how do you handle that contact tracing? Do you get involved in that? Do they handle it on their own?
If it's my department, I do it. If it's my department, then I try to help. But again, bring in HR and make sure they're aware, and they advise you on how to do that. Because obviously you've got privacy issues that are involved with HIPAA, and you don't want to, you don't want to walk around and ask 50 people, have you been in touch with Chuck? So there's some protocols that you need to follow and ways you can do it. So.
Well, okay, so let's say that you figured out that Jeff, has been in touch with Chuck. And so you tell Jeff to get tested. I mean, is it that, well, Jeff don't come back until you have the results of the test?
Yep.
How does that work?
I don't have them come back until they have the test results. If they test positive, then they don't come back for 14 days or until they're cleared by a physician. And if you can get the test results back in 3 days and they're not symptomatic anymore, you can have them return to work.
Okay. Well, and let's take that contact tracing to the player or member end of it. So you know that a member, let's say, was ill, and that let's say a junior, and there's some clinics, and they came in contact with some other players. So, Chuck, I mean, how does that play out? That you know that these other players, my daughter, for example, let's say that she was in the clinic with someone else who turns out to be ill with COVID. You asked my daughter. I mean, I guess she has to get tested. She has to. What happens with that? Like, what are you telling me about my daughter or telling her?
I believe what you're telling them is when someone tests positive, you're taking people they were in contact with and advising them to get tested as well, because that's the key to really stopping the spread. It's that speculation where you aren't sure, so you don't test and you let it go, and then that spreads to another person. So as soon as you isolate that there's a positive test, you try to let everyone know as much as you can that they need to be tested, because someone that they've come in contact with recently was tested. And that happened at our club, actually, where a lot of people that were in that same workspace all went out and got tested. Fortunately, none of them tested positive. So.
Okay, so if I'm a member at the club at Ibis and my daughter came in contact with somebody, and I say, okay, well, I'll get her tested, and we'll see when the results come back. But we've got a clinic tomorrow. She can come to that, right? I mean,
no.
Is she banned from the club until we get the test results?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you're banned, but I said for your own safety and the safety of others, you are advised not to use the club until you're tested. It's not. It's funny that at times it gets worded like it's a punitive thing, and it's not a punitive measure at all. It's an actual benefit and a safety precaution for yourself and others.
Okay.
But funny enough, Kevin, people see it as punitive, but it's not.
I'm a dues-paying member, so I should be able to.
And my responsibility to you as a dues-paying member is to make sure your experience here is safe and that you have a very healthy environment to utilize your membership. And if that's not the case, you will not be here.
Okay. And then, Jeff, I mean, how would you handle a member who is ill? Would it be the same thing or what, as far as, or rather the not the one who's ill, but someone who may have come in contact with that member?
Well, actually, we had that at our facility, and it was we had a member who it's a long story. I'll make it real quick. She responded to a cardio list. This was before we shut down. She responded to a cardio list. Instead of saying whether she was attending or not, she talked about this person who was brought into her building who had tested positive for the virus, and she was very upset at the person who brought him in the building and what have you. And so, of course, everybody on that list is like, I'm not playing near Elizabeth, or I hope she's not going to come out. And then, unfortunately, she contacted one of my assistants and she said, could I get one lesson a day next week? And so I went and spoke to our general manager and said, I want to explain to you what's going on. All of us here, in fact, everybody on the call, we go out of our way to take care of our members, right? But this is a very unique situation. And so I spoke to the general manager, and I didn't get half of that out. And he said, that is just wrong. She is putting one of our employees in a very bad situation. In fact, she's putting our membership in a bad situation by coming out here when she doesn't know whether she was exposed or whether she's got the virus or not. So I would agree with Chuck that although these members pay large dues and support us, that we got to think in regards to our employees' safety, other members' safety, and handle it that way.
Okay. And then, Sophie, what about somebody a member who may have come in contact with another member who is actually ill? Well, how would you handle that? Same, different?
Well, I have not opened any of the group programming. So if somebody is playing with someone on their own time, to me, that is their responsibility.
Okay.
I don't know if I would be in the capacity to, I think I would be open-minded and say, okay, this is what happened. In your force, this lady tested positive or this lady has been in contact. I would address it, but since I'm not offering any group programming, I feel like if a foursome goes out there and plays doubles and they don't take 4 cans of balls individually and they're sharing a bench or doing stupid things, that's just not a good idea.
Right. Tom, what about you?
Well, I personally think Chuck hit the nail on the head in the fact that as an employee of this club, it's our responsibility to run the safest environment that we can run at our department and at our club. That being said, and again, we have not had this happen in reference to any member testing positive, but if that would happen, contacting the individuals that have been around that person that was tested positive, I think is imperative, and asking them to move forward and not using the facility to keep our facility safe for the rest of the members that are using it, and getting information in reference to their testing moving forward. But again, I say this over and over, safety is the key right now in what we're having to deal with. In whatever capacity we open, it's wellness and safety. And it's so important that for us as directors that we put that above anything else right now. And economy and the economics of what's going on is, I know, hitting a lot of people's pockets, but also understand that if this continues, we will be in a situation that this could run longer and longer if we don't create a safe environment.
Okay. Let's think ahead a little bit. So maybe a few months from now, things are starting. We're getting past this, it seems. People are getting back to work, participating more in tennis and so forth. But imagine that as we do that, and as on the news, there's a degree of concern that we could see a resurgence of COVID. So let's, for a moment, I mean, we don't want this to happen, obviously, but if it were to happen that multiple members of yours came down with it, I mean, at what point would you consider closing the club down?
I'd feel very confident. Again, I'm not the one that makes that decision in closing the club, but I feel very strongly that our board and general manager would not have a choice but to go ahead and close immediately. And I think as we moved in these last couple of weeks, we've talked about that. If by some chance we found out that a member was tested positive, I think the GM and the board felt very strongly to go ahead and shut us down for a period of time, whatever that may be. So, you know, I don't know if I'm answering this question fully, but I feel that it would not even be my decision. It would actually automatically go to our GM and board, and I think it would happen immediately that this whole club on both sides, golf and tennis, would shut down immediately.
Well, just as a follow-up to that, though, Tom, I mean, is this the sort of thing that, and it sounds like you're having discussions along these lines now, I mean, that you would have an actual plan in place up front, so do you know when a certain number of members maybe have become ill that you shut down, or would it be more of a reactive, and I hate to use that word, but more just, okay, well, things are not looking too good, let's shut down? I mean, is there some talk about having a plan in place before this would happen or could happen?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer, Kevin. And I say that because a lot of the things that are happening right now are reactive, because we really don't, there's no history. There's no real information outside of what we're getting from our governors and our president right now. So, you know, a lot of these things, unfortunately, are pretty reactive. Do we have a plan in place in case this does happen? I will have to say, no, we don't at this time, because we're reacting to so many other facets that are going on with this in reference to employees, and trying to understand whether or not we be open in the policies and what we can do for how many people can be on the court and be on the court right now. So, you know, again, for me, that's a tough question to answer, because we're dealing with so many things that are not issues that we've dealt with in the past. This is so brand new for all of us. So, again, I know that's not a real good answer. It's real vague, but the answer that, do we have a plan in place? no, we don't, because things are coming up to us every day, every hour, in reference to how many people are positive in our state and in our community, and how many people are unfortunately passing away, dying because of this. So, you know, it's a tough situation, and I know I really didn't answer the question fully. I hope the other three panelists, individuals, can answer it better than I can. But to answer it in a lengthy time, no, we don't have a plan in place. We do things reactively.
Okay. Well, and I understand that. I mean, things are changing by the day. Sophie, I mean, what if you were to reopen fully? At what point would you consider closing back down? What would make that be a consideration, or for you to have a plan for that?
You know, what I like about Tom's answer is that it's honest. So, no, we don't have enough information. So some of my colleagues have, you know, they closed at the end of March, then they reopened, then they closed, then they reopened. So they're just being yo-yos because they close because they're afraid, and then their members ask them to reopen and put pressure, and then they close because something else happens. So I believe that, you know, for me to fully reopen, I'd have to be completely sure that we have either a vaccine or a cure for this thing. So just opening conservatively with just private lessons and individual play, to me, is a safer way to go. And we can do that long term, as opposed to deciding that we're going to do, you know, we're going to launch cardio tennis again because I can't wait, and my members can't wait, and then we have to close in 2 weeks because we went too fast. So I'd rather stay open conservatively than have to close because I went too fast. Okay,
that makes sense. And then Jeff?
Without boring everybody, my answer is pretty much the same as Tom's, that this is really a board and general manager answer. However, I will say that being in the parish, which is a county for everyone else in the United States, in the parish of a hotspot being New Orleans, we have to abide by the mayor and what the city governance comes up with. Literally, the reason why we closed on April 1st is we were slowly adding restrictions. In fact, our courts are in threes, and we were getting ready to take the nets down in the middle courts. And literally within a half hour, my general manager opened the shop door and said, "Nope, shut it down. We're done." It's just so happens that he had spoken to a city council person who put us in touch with the city health inspector, who said, "Nope, you're done." So that was it. And all tennis facilities were closed. So that was out of our hands. It wasn't something the general manager or the board made a decision on. It was just, it was made for us.
You know, that's a lot less.
And then Chuck. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Sophie.
I'm sorry. That's a lot less pressure on your owner, general manager, if the mayor or the governor of the state makes the decision. You know, they have a lot of information that we don't have. So it takes a lot of pressure off the owner to have the ability to follow the mayor.
That's right. And Chuck?
Yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off the club and the board and the general manager when the municipality acts in the best interest of everyone and just says you're not doing it. That being said, it's a very tough decision, but I think in our case, we did have a time where we said if we have a case within our gates and we're a almost 3,500 member club, we did say if we get a case within our gates, we are closing. Because while everybody makes this little bit of a nut argument of, well, I mean, playing golf and playing tennis is just as safe as going to the supermarket. The last time I checked, you do have to eat, and I don't think anyone's ever died from not hitting tennis balls or golf balls. So I think you just want to err on the side of being much safer. And I think, in answer to the original question, I think we would have shut it. I think we would shut it down. And if we had an outbreak again, we would close the club, whether the county asked us to or not.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. For sake of time, we're actually going to move into a little bit of a speed round here. Okay. And Sophie, you'll be up first. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And if you give us short answers to each one, that would be great. Okay.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So some clubs are going to use no contact thermometers for members entering the club. Is this something you're considering? And if so, how would that work?
No, I don't consider it because it can spread without symptoms. So, and also one of our members brought one and he ended up having to get close to somebody to test it. So no, that's not in the future.
Okay. And then will you allow people to show up and just play, or will they have to make reservations in advance?
Either way, as long as the courts are available.
Okay. And would you consider installing touchless water fountains and soap dispensers?
Right now, honestly, I'm not spending any money, you know, we just don't know.
Okay.
Smart move,
So
Sophie.
no. All right. And then how about handling towels for members, outdoor benches, and water coolers and scorecards? Would you do anything different?
I unplugged the ice machine. It's gone. I've taken out all the scoreboards. The water fountain, same thing, unavailable. So what else was there? Water coolers.
Okay. Well, this is this is upon reopening. So towels, outdoor benches, water coolers, and scorecards.
Slowly.
And then
yeah, slowly.
all right. And then what about allowing members to use demos and ball machines?
The members can use the ball machines right now as long as they spray the handle that they're touching and that they're using either a tube or a basket so they don't touch the balls.
Okay. And then how would you handle areas where players tend to congregate?
That's very tough. That's very difficult. The parking lot or when they walk back from the court is very tough. I just have to email them and constantly remind them, listen, we've got to be careful, stay far apart, keep your social distancing, be smart.
Okay, fantastic. All right, Tom, so we're going to, same question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold on. So I closed in April, and then mid-April, I decided I was not everybody's mother. It was very difficult for me, you know, to just say, listen, you've got to trust people to make their own decision. Let them be smart and let them play, because they need the you know, the mental health, they need the exercise, they need to be outside. So we have to balance out our risk and be smart.
Okay, that sounds good. Tom, how would you handle the areas where players tend to congregate?
We've already done that. And again, being open, I feel like I can answer some of these pretty quickly, but we've removed all the tables and chairs in our patio areas that no one can get there. We constantly remind the members that when they come, they go right to the court to play and leave immediately. And emails still go out periodically about no congregating and social distancing.
Okay, and then what about demos and ball machines?
No demos are allowed to leave the pro shop, as we've got the pro shop closed for any member use. I do have an employee in there to oversee reservations, but we do not let any demos go out, and the ball machine is at no use as well.
Okay, and then what about towels, benches, water coolers, and scorecards?
Towels were in the pro shop prior to this, so we have removed the towels. No towels can be used. Our outdoor benches have all been removed. Water coolers have been removed. Scorecards have been removed. Our water fountain and ice machine has been shut off. All our gates have been locked except for one gate that constantly stays open to certain areas so they can get to the courts appropriately. And I put just out of we have spray sanitation bottles that we've got, and they are on every court for the members to use as well.
Okay, and will players be forced to make reservations to play, or can they just show up if there's an available court? We
strongly encourage reservations because we have an online reservation system that they can do through their phone or through their computer. We don't want to discourage drop-ins, and we really don't get a lot of that, fortunately, because of our online reservations. And it also gives them the understanding, if they go online to their phone and look, they know what courts are open. They can book their court and know exactly what court they have booked. So they can go right to it and they can leave right afterwards. So the online reservation system has been a real plus for us.
Okay, good. All right. Jeff, what about you as far as reservations? Just online or just call in, or will you allow people to just show up and play if there's available court?
We are going to accept reservations, which we don't normally do. I know most clubs accept reservations. We typically are a first come, first serve, except for Saturday mornings, but we are going to do reservations by phone and discourage drop-ins.
Okay, and then what about handling towels, benches, water coolers, and scorecards?
No scorecards, no towels, and benches will be gone.
Okay. And then demos and ball machines?
No demos. We are going to allow the ball machines, but we will space out the reservation time for ball machines so that we have a chance to sanitize both the ball machine and the ball mower. The members should not have to touch the balls. I know that's in theory, but the members shouldn't have to touch the balls, being that they will just be touching the control box and the ball machine and the ball mower.
Okay, and then what about players, areas where players had to congregate?
No, we're discouraging that. I've spoken to several other pros just trying to find out how they're handling it. And I know that there are several facilities that are not even allowing parents to come and watch a private lesson when they're juniors taking it. So people are taking it very seriously. We're not going to do that, but we are going to not have any tables and chairs, which means that people would have to stand, and we're going to say that only one person from the family, the father, can come and stand and watch if he wants to, because it can maintain social distancing by doing that. But other than that, no.
Yeah, that works magic. Jack Welch, I guess, used to do that with meetings. It made meetings very, very short. Everyone had to stand the whole time. Chuck, what about you handling players, areas where players tend to congregate?
Okay, I'm going to break the Southern Division speed round record. You ready?
Yeah, all right.
Start with F. You ready? They're all gone, eliminated.
Okay. Right. Wow. Well, all right. They're eliminated. Fantastic.
All gone. No.
So the demos and the ball machines, they're gone too?
Gone. No use. Can't use them.
Towels, outdoor benches, water coolers, scorecards. You got it. All right. And then
touch the water coolers. Gone. Touch
all right.
We touch water coolers and sub dispensers.
All right. Well, then that is a record. I have to
no
say
drop
for answering this series. But handling the back to the areas where players tend to congregate. I mean, the juniors will not always listen, as we know. So, I mean, is there a sort of protocol? Like, how are you handling? All right, the kids are not listening. They're all kind of bunching together, that sort of thing. I mean, what are you doing about that?
They're all just disperse. Come, play, leave. It's just not business as usual. Just come, play, and leave. If we have some kids playing that are in a junior program, parents have to be ready to pick them up when the sessions are over.
Okay,
I would agree with that, Kevin.
All right, well,
I think that's something that I would encourage all pros that are listening to this webinar, is that you set your policy so that when people come, whether they're just playing or they're taking a lesson, that they need to arrive no earlier than 10 minutes prior to, and they need to leave as soon as it's over.
That's good advice. All right, let's talk a little bit about programming. And Jeff, we'll start with you. So, I mean, how are your ratios any different between coaches and players than they were in the past, or actually going forward? I mean, do you anticipate maintaining different ratios?
I don't know if I've mentioned this, but we're not open right now. We're planning to open mid-May. That's the mayor has set May 15th, but right before we close, we had already limited to private lessons only, unless it was in the same household. So when we open up, we will, as Tom said, be extremely cautious and keep it to either private lessons or small family groups.
Okay, and this will be part 2 of the speed round. So are you going to allow players to serve? Will players be able to touch the balls, in other words, when you reopen?
When we do that, thinking it through and talking with others, I know some say absolutely not. I think I'm likely to do what the USTA had mentioned in guidelines, which is if somebody is adamant that they do want to practice their serve, that we'll pull out a couple of new cans of balls and only allow the lesson taker to touch the balls.
Okay. And then are you planning on having summer camps?
That is a big question right now. I would say, we tend to have two junior camps. We have a little more advanced camp and we have a younger kids camp. For the more advanced camp, yes, we will. And we will be making a decision whether we have 2 on a court or 4 on a court. In regards to our younger folks, that is still up in the air. So I haven't decided what we're going to do with them.
Okay. And are there any creative program ideas that you're contemplating given the unusual situation that we're in? Actually,
I'm thinking about organizing with some of the other clubs in the area and doing a junior singles league for the summer, where we have play, whether it's every Friday or just a day that we pick. That would be fun and keep the kids active. I know the parents would appreciate it. As many of you have already heard, there are camps closing left and right, and so they're going to want to get out and stay active. So anything we can do to add some activity or competition. The other thing I'm thinking about doing is a family doubles night, so that we're able to bring families together. And again, Tom and I had this conversation the other day. Sorry, Tom, if I'm divulging some of the information from your club, but no, this is good. His club had decided that they would only allow members of the same household to come, and they would have to stay on one side of the net, and then the pro would be on the other side of the net. Whereas what we may end up doing is members of the same household could, as long as they stay on the other opposite sides of the net. So we could have a husband and wife on one side, and we could have a mother and son on the other side, and be doing a lesson that way. So just an idea.
Okay. Sophie, are you thinking of any creative ideas, once you get back up and running?
I think the name of the game right now is to be patient and just wait. So no, I don't have anything creative, but I do see a big difference in the members compared to March, where we're starting to impose restrictions on, spacing and such. The second time around, where they're coming back slowly to the game, they're a lot more aware than they were a couple months ago. They're doing so much better, staying away from each other, not sharing equipment and such. So that's been very encouraging. And the other thing that we did is we took the translates off, so people don't pick up the trash. And some of the clubs in South Carolina have closed play after sunset, so people don't have to touch the light switches.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Other than asking my members if I can help them electronically, I haven't come up with anything genius, unfortunately.
Okay. And then what about serving? You think you'll be allowing people in clinics to serve, to players touch the balls?
In private lessons, we've done the serving where we've used a specific basket, something that we don't use for 24 hours or 48 hours. So somebody can use that, or we can use a can of balls and just bump the ball back to them from a distance while we're coaching. So there is a way to do it, but we have not been prioritizing serves. We've been doing more overheads than serves.
Okay. And Tom, what about you as far as, maybe a month from now? Do you think you'll allow players to serve in clinics or not touch the balls at all? What are you thinking about that?
A month from now will be a difficult question to answer. As of right now and in the very near future, because we're able to teach, I will not let anybody touch the serves. But I'm gonna say this as an opinion. I have yet to hear anybody get the coronavirus from touching tennis balls. And I heard that from a doctor, actually. So, and I'm not saying that I'm overstepping the boundaries of what we're trying to do. And my pros are the only one that are that are touching the balls, and we are not serving, and I would continue to keep that policy.
Okay. Any creative plans for the summer or just going forward?
I don't have anything that's in place in reference to creative plans, but I really liked what Jeff said, was the idea of possibly putting something together for the juniors to create some kind of a competitive activity, and wouldn't mind trying to do something, because we're going to, right now we have in place that only family members can be on the court playing at the same time right now, of the same household. But I would like to see us change that here in the next week or two, that on the same side would be two family members, meaning a husband and wife, and on the other side could be another husband and wife. And I wouldn't mind trying to put something together this summer for a either mixer that way, or, and again, I don't want to, I hate to use the word mixer because people think big congregation, and I'm not thinking that, but just some kind of activity that gets people on the court.
Okay. Chuck, what are your thoughts? Do you have any creative plans for your summer programming and beyond?
Well, our summer camp was just canceled last week. We just made a decision with no group lessons that we have canceled our summer camp. It helped that the day after we did it, there was a feature on the news talking about how summer camps are all canceling if they haven't been canceled. As far as player ratios, we're going to do private lessons only, because the county has made it singles play only. So we're really only allowed to have 2 people on a court for tennis and pickleball, by the way. As far as creative ideas for programming, I think everybody's had some really good ones so far. We really tried to be creative while we were closed, and a couple of things that we did that I thought were, a little bit different were, one is we opened up our tennis court and we partnered with our fitness classes to allow some fitness classes to be done on the tennis court. And the reason we did it was because it was so hard for the group to do like Zumba classes and some of their regular exercise classes, that while the weather was nice, we would put 6 people on the side of the tennis court, and we had a lot of social spacing with exercise. What we didn't realize was the unintended consequence of that is we've probably picked up quite a few tennis players, because a lot of the younger members who exercise, who are intimidated and think they can't learn to play tennis, when they're when they're doing an exercise class next to a group of 2.0, 2.5 players, they're suddenly thinking, hey, I should start playing tennis because I think I could play better than that now. So we actually, that was a win. Another creative idea that a couple of my staff had just to stay connected was they really are using a lot of their videos and sending the members and their people on their teams the video today. And one of my members, actually, Jay Berger, one of my staff members, Jay Berger, started a book club. And now he's up to like in the 20s, almost 30 members that email the email thread of what they think of this chapter. And again, it's just anything you do to connect is probably going to be good.
Well, fantastic. Well, we only have a couple of minutes left. Pat, are there any questions that have jumped out to you or that you want to pose to the panel?
Yeah, we have a few, and I have one from Jane Hunter, who's up here in Beaufort, Georgia, that had emailed me earlier this week, and she's on the call. And she's wanting to know if anybody, now she's at a public facility, but if anybody's going to be using a waiver for their summer camps this year, if they're going to have whoever's going to be attending sign a waiver, a medical waiver.
Crickets.
Any thoughts on that from the panel? Anybody, Jeff?
I don't have an answer, so I'm going to defer to the other 3.
I don't know if
Okay, Sophie? Or any of you, really?
I don't I don't think waivers are going to save lives. So, I mean, I guess it could protect you with your liability, but I'm not sure it would hold. Chuck?
I don't know that it would hold, but we're canceled. But if we had summer camp, we have a standard waiver that we wouldn't have a special COVID waiver.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I don't know if a waiver would hold water with something like this. I'd be cautious to do a waiver, to be honest.
All right, Pat, is there another one?
There has been a question Chris Bull had asked about if people, once we get through phase 1, are going to start to open up their restrooms and locker rooms.
We're opening up our restroom for restroom only, and we are not opening up showers. And we have a couple of locker rooms that have steam and sauna and jacuzzis, and all of that is closed. And I actually foresee that being closed for some time, but just go in for the restroom use only. But public showers, jacuzzis, any of those amenities, we plan on closing for some time.
Yeah, and Kevin Jackson said in the chat that they can't open locker rooms until the governor allows gyms and fitness to open. So that would probably coincide.
I'm on the same page as Chuck on that one at our facility. We right now, the pro shop is locked up for member use and our bathrooms are, but as this May 8th hits from our governor and he does open things up, we're going to go ahead and open our bathrooms. And actually, I just heard our board just voted yes to opening up the golf bathrooms on the golf course, which will start, I think, tomorrow. So if that does happen, which it did, then we'll be opening up our bathrooms as well with heavy sanitation during that time.
A shout out to Matt Grayson at Ansley Country Club, who I've spoken to recently. We were laughing because Matt is pretty detail oriented. He had some suggestions on people coming because their bathrooms are closed. He said, what to do before you come to the tennis courts. A, get a bottle of water. B, get your towel. C, go to the bathroom. So
Nice.
That's great.
That's great.
There are lots of questions on the chat.
Well, all right, Pat, let's, we got time to have one more question, at least.
Which did you see, Sophie, that you liked, that stood out to you? Somebody asked about stringing rackets, if they were allowing, if they were doing racket stringing.
We are the rubber gloves.
We are too, and again, partially because we are, like I said, open in reference to our activity. So we are stringing rackets. My staff that are stringing spray them down before, spray them down after, and when we are done, we call the member to come pick it up on the outside of our pro shop and hand it to them with gloves.
One of the questions is about league tennis. I know that the upstate league coordinators want to resume junior team tennis in June. I'm not for it. What do y'all think?
Again, I'm one of these that kind of jump in right away. I would, again, probably discourage that since we don't have enough information, and that's only a month away. And so I would think that would be possibly taking a chance. Here in Greensboro, they've canceled all our leagues until fall in reference to our city leagues. So no JTT, which is no adult league going on until end of August, 1st of September.
All right. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Go ahead. Sorry, Chuck.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say regarding leagues and stuff, I think everything that involves congregating is going to be discouraged for a while. I did think it was interesting that there were a lot of comments on the chat about masks and gloves, and I think the gloves are a good idea as long as you do change them. Yes, the person can ironically touch a surface with their glove and then go to their face. So you probably need to make sure that you're washing your hands a lot and then changing your gloves a lot. And most people think the masks are just a good idea, at least in my neck of the woods, for optics. So anytime you're around a lot of people, and by the nature of being staff, if you're around a lot of members, I don't think masks are a bad idea at all. I've been wearing them outside when I'm roaming the courts.
I'm going to jump in with Chuck on this one just to say perception is just as important as what we're trying to do. And as you open up and you start to teach private lessons, or you start to, on the court, spraying ball hoppers down and wearing masks and using gloves, as important as it is on the day-to-day basis for what we've got, the perception of what you're doing at your facility and eyesight to what members are seeing is just as important. So they understand that it makes them feel safe to come to the facility. So, yeah, visuals are just as important as anything else.
With regards to perception as well, one of the things I did is I waived the dues for April. You know, saying, you know, if we're closed, I'm not going to charge you. And then, you know, when we are, you know, reopening as we're reopening slowly, for May, I sent an email to the members. The club is going to be open. Are you going to come, or are you not planning on coming out? So I've had about 10 people that have said, you know, we're not coming out. So I'm waiving May for them as well, because I feel like if I don't waive, if somebody can't come for 5 months because they have a pre-existing condition, and I don't waive their membership, I'm more likely to lose them than if I keep them for 5 more months on the membership. So that's been my philosophy, is to keep them long-term versus trying to make money in the short term.
That's awesome, Sophie. Super smart. Everybody, Kevin has had to leave to go to a 3 o'clock USTA call, and I am going to, we try to keep this to an hour, and we run a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting. But thank you so much to Chuck, Jeff, Sophie, and Tom. This was fantastic. Great information.
Thank you all. Thanks, Pat.
Everybody have a safe day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.